That egg sitting in your fridge right now could be the reason your water plants finally take off this season. Most people have tried the store-bought tablets. They push them into the soil exactly the way the package says. They wait, and the plant just sits there looking pale and unimpressed. The fertilizer companies want you to believe the problem is that you haven't bought the right product yet. But the real problem is that you've been feeding your water plants the wrong things entirely, and the fix has been sitting in your kitchen all along. I've been working with water plants for most of my adult life, and the best results I've ever seen didn't come from anything with a label on it. They came from a handful of everyday ingredients that cost nothing, used the right way, in the right order, at the right time in the season. There's one ingredient in particular that ties the whole system together, and most people never think to use it at all. I'll get to that before we're done, but first, let's talk about what's actually going wrong with your water plants. Because once you understand that, everything else clicks into place immediately. Because here's the thing, that plant wasn't sick, it wasn't dying, it was just hungry for something those store-bought tablets weren't giving it in the right way. And the fix I eventually found cost me nothing. Absolutely nothing. It came from things I already had sitting around, things my grandfather taught me to use, and something I learned from an old Amish farmer down the road, who grew the most magnificent water garden I have ever seen in my life. His lotus blooms were the size of dinner plates. His water lilies covered the surface of that pond so thick you could barely see the water, and he hadn't bought a single packet of fertilizer in 30 years. My name is Thomas Greaves. I've been homesteading and working this land most of my life, and the knowledge I lean on didn't come from a university or a bottle with a label. It came from my father, my grandfather, and the Amish families I grew up alongside. I'm going to share what they taught me, and by the time we're done here, you're going to have everything you need to feed your water plants better than any store-bought product ever did. Now, before we get into the method itself, I want to plant a thought in your head that we'll come back to near the end of this video. There's one ingredient in this whole system that most people completely overlook, and it's the one that makes the biggest difference of all. I'll get to it. But first, let's talk about what your water plants actually need and why most people get it wrong from the very start. Water plants are different from your garden tomatoes or your flower beds. They're living in a closed or semi-closed environment, whether that's a container on your porch, a small backyard pond, or a water garden tub. And the challenge with that kind of environment is that the nutrients don't replenish themselves the way they do in open ground. Rain doesn't wash new minerals in. Earthworms aren't working the soil beneath them. Whatever you put in that container at the beginning is mostly what those roots are working with, and over time it runs out. The leaves start yellowing, growth slows down, blooms stop coming, and people assume the plant is struggling because of disease or the wrong amount of sun. But 9 times out of 10, it's just hungry. The first thing my grandfather always said about feeding any plant was this: feed the soil, not the plant. And that principle matters even more in water gardening than it does in the vegetable patch. Because when you dump something directly into the water column of a pond or a container, it disperses fast, the plant barely catches it before it's gone, and you end up feeding algae more than you feed the plant. The old-timers knew this. You don't pour your fertilizer into the water. You work it into the growing medium, down near the roots, where it can actually be taken up slowly and steadily. So let me walk you through the method. And I'll start with what I'd call the second best part of this system, because it's the one that gets results the fastest and the one that will probably surprise you the most. Eggshells. Plain, dried eggshells from your kitchen. Now, before you think I'm going to tell you to just toss a few shells in a bucket and call it a day, stay with me, because the way you prepare them and use them is what makes all the difference. Eggshells are loaded with calcium, and they also carry trace amounts of magnesium and other minerals that water plants genuinely need. Calcium is one of those nutrients that gets overlooked, because people focus on nitrogen and phosphorus, the big numbers on the fertilizer bag. But calcium is what keeps cell walls strong. It's what helps roots develop properly. Without it, even a plant that's getting plenty of nitrogen will look weak and soft and won't bloom reliably. Here's how you do it. Collect your eggshells and rinse them out so they don't smell. Let them dry completely. A few days on the counter or an afternoon in a low oven works fine. Once they're dry and brittle, crush them as fine as you can get them. I use an old wooden rolling pin and the cloth bag. You want a powder, or as close to powder as you can manage. The finer the grind, the faster those minerals become available to the roots. Once you've got your eggshell powder, you're going to work it directly into the growing medium around your plants, pushing it down a few inches into the soil, away from the crown of the plant. not on top of the soil, not into the water. Into the soil, near the roots. Do this every 4 to 6 weeks through the growing season, and you will see a difference in the color and strength of the leaves within a couple of weeks. Now, here's where I want to tell you about a mistake I see people make all the time. They hear about eggshells and they get excited, and they just crack a few shells and drop them right into the water or lay them on top of the soil. It doesn't work that way. Whole shells break down so slowly that the plant gets almost no benefit before the season's over. You have to crush them fine. That's the part that matters. And if you're growing your water plants in a container with fish in it, fine eggshell powder worked into the soil won't harm the fish at all. It stays in the substrate where the roots are, not floating around in the water. The second thing I want to talk about is rice water, and this one I learned directly from a practice that's been used for generations. My grandfather's neighbor, an Amish woman who kept the most productive kitchen garden I ever saw, she never threw away the water she cooked rice in. She used it on everything, and when I asked her once why the plants around her farmhouse always looked so lush compared to everyone else's, she smiled and said the water knows what to do. I didn't understand what she meant at the time, but what she was describing is real. The water left over from rinsing or boiling rice carries starch, nitrogen, phosphorus, and a collection of trace minerals that get leached out of the grain during soaking or cooking. For water plants specifically, this is a gentle, balanced feed that doesn't shock the roots and doesn't cause a sudden algae bloom the way a heavy chemical fertilizer can. The way you use it is simple. When you rinse your rice before cooking, collect that first rinse water in a jar or a bucket. Let it sit at room temperature for a day or two. This fermentation period is important. As it sits, beneficial microbes begin to work on the starches and nutrients in the water, breaking them down into forms that plant roots can absorb more easily. You'll know it's ready when it smells slightly sour, a little like mild vinegar. That's the fermentation doing its work. Then you dilute it, about 1 part rice water to 4 or 5 parts plain water. And you apply it directly into the soil of your water plant container. Not poured over the leaves, not dumped into the open pond water. Work it into the root zone. Do this every 2 weeks during the active growing season, and your plants will respond. Now, I want to come back to something I mentioned earlier, because we're getting close to the part I told you to hold on to. But before I get there, let me talk about the third piece of this system, which addresses the most common question I hear from folks who are trying to grow water lilies and lotus in containers. Why won't it bloom? 9 times out of 10, the answer is phosphorus. Not a lack of nitrogen, not a lack of water, not too much shade. Phosphorus is what drives flowering in most plants, and it's the nutrient that tends to run out fastest in a closed container environment. And here's what's interesting about that. One of the best natural sources of phosphorus that you already have at home is banana peels. I know, it sounds too simple, but the old-timers used banana peels in the garden for exactly this reason. Potassium and phosphorus, both of which are critical for bloom production and root strength. Here's how you use them for water plants specifically, because you can't just bury a banana peel in a water container and expect it to work well. What you want to do is dry the peels first. Lay them out in the sun, or put them in a low oven until they're completely dry and brittle. Then grind or crumble them into small pieces, as fine as you can manage. Mix the dried peel material with a small amount of the soil or clay you're using in your container, form it into a loose ball, and press that ball down into the growing medium near the roots, a few inches from the crown of the plant. That slow release approach keeps the nutrients right where the roots can find them, and it won't foul your water. Do this once a month during the growing season, and if your water lily or lotus has been refusing to bloom, give it 6 to 8 weeks and watch what happens. Now I want to tell you about a neighbor of mine who tried this a couple of summers back. He'd been growing a hardy water lily in a half barrel on his front porch for 2 years, and that plant had never bloomed once. Not a single flower. He'd bought the commercial tablets, he'd tried liquid fertilizers, he'd even repotted it with fresh soil thinking that was the problem. Nothing worked. I told him to stop buying anything, dry out some banana peels, grind them up, and work them into the soil around the roots, along with some crushed eggshell. He was skeptical, called me 3 weeks later and said there were 2 buds coming up through the pads. By the end of that summer, he had blooms coming and going almost continuously. That plant hadn't changed. The soil hadn't changed. The only thing that changed was what he was feeding it. All right, now I want to get to the thing I told you to hold on to at the beginning. The one ingredient that most people completely overlook, and the one that ties everything else together. It's compost tea. Not compost itself, not just dumping a handful of finished compost into your container, but actual compost tea, brewed the old way. The Amish farmer I mentioned at the start of this video, the one with the lotus blooms the size of dinner plates, I spent a few harvest days helping him, one autumn when I was younger, and I watched how he prepared his water garden for the next season. He had a wooden barrel near the pond, and every week through the summer he'd take a cloth bag, fill it with finished compost from his pile, drop it in that barrel of water, and let it steep like you'd steep a tea bag. He left it in the sun for 2 to 3 days, stirring it once a day with a long wooden handle. Then he'd take that dark, rich water and work it carefully into the soil of his water plant containers, never pouring it directly into the open pond, always into the root zone of the potted plants. He'd been doing it that way for decades. His father had done it before him. What that process does is pull the soluble nutrients out of the compost and into the water in a gentle, balanced form. You get nitrogen, phosphorus, potassium, trace minerals, and something that no store-bought fertilizer gives you in the same way, which is living microbial life. Those microbes work in the soil around the roots, breaking down organic matter into forms the plant can absorb, and they help keep the root environment healthy and disease-resistant. It's the difference between feeding a plant and feeding the whole living system the plant depends on. To make it yourself, you need finished compost, nothing fresh or half-rotted. It needs to be fully broken down. Fill an old pillowcase or a cloth bag with a few generous handfuls. Drop it in a 5-gallon bucket of water. Set it somewhere it gets good light and warmth. Let it steep for 2 to 3 days, stirring once a day. The water will turn a dark tea color. That's what you want. Then remove the bag and apply the liquid directly into the soil of your water plant containers, working it in around the root zone. Once every 2 weeks through the growing season, the leftover compost in the bag goes right back onto your compost pile or into your garden beds. Nothing wasted. And here's what ties all 3 of these together into one system. You're not doing just one of these things. You're rotating them. Early in the season, when your plants are putting on new growth, you lean on the rice water and the compost tea to push nitrogen and build strong roots. As the season moves toward midsummer and you want blooms, you start working in the banana peel material and the eggshell powder to shift the balance toward phosphorus, potassium, and calcium. You're reading the plant, watching what it's doing, and feeding it accordingly. That's what the old-timers did. That's what that Amish farmer did. Not one product applied blindly on a schedule, but a rotation of natural inputs matched to what the plant is actually doing at that moment in the season. Think back to where we started. A plant sitting pale and still in a clay pot, money spent on store-bought tablets that barely moved the needle. Now picture that same plant, same pot, same spot on the porch, but the leaves are deep green and broad. There are 2 or 3 buds pushing up through the pads, and the only thing you spent to get there was the time it took to save your eggshells, collect your rice water, dry a few banana peels, and steep a bag of compost in a bucket of water. Nothing bought, nothing wasted. Everything your grandparents would have recognized and your water plants will thank you for. If this is the kind of thing you want to see more of, go ahead and drop a comment below. Tell me what water plants you're growing and what kind of trouble you've been having with them. I read every one of those, and your question might end up being the next video. If you've got a friend who's been fighting with a stubborn water lily or a lotus that won't bloom, pass this along to them. And if you want to keep learning this way of doing things, the subscribe button is right there. There's no cost to it, and I've got a lot more of this kind of knowledge to share. I'll see you in the next one.